Tonight, several developing stories as we come on the air. A flash flood emergency right now in Virginia. More than 90 million Americans could be impacted by winter weather. Breaking news, what we just learned about the talks between the U.S. and Russia to end the war in Ukraine. And thousands of IRS workers could be laid off in the middle of tax season. First, a stormy night ahead for much of the country. Severe storms, possibly tornadoes in the south. Life-threatening floods in Virginia, Kentucky, and Tennessee. Rain, snow, and ice in the northeast. And mudslides in the west. Our weather team's tracking it all. The news just coming in, talks between the U.S. and Russian officials to end the war in Ukraine are set to begin in Saudi Arabia. The IRS in the crosshairs. Up to 15,000 IRS workers could soon be out of work just as the agency gears up for tax season. Confusion at multiple government agencies already dealing with mass cutbacks under Elon Musk and the Department of Government Efficiency. Scientists and doctors fearing they won't be able to respond to a health crisis. Emotional reunions in the Middle East. Hamas releases 3 more hostages, including an American. Hundreds of Palestinian prisoners also released. The larger question, will the fragile ceasefire deal hold? Also tonight, Pope Francis said to be showing some improvement, but spending a second night in the hospital with bronchitis. The Vatican canceling several appearances. The suspect accused of murdering a top insurance executive makes his first public statement, thanking supporters who donated hundreds of thousands of dollars to his legal defense. Panic inside a highway tunnel. Drivers running to safety after a deadly crash and fire deep inside a mountain. An investigation now underway. Egg prices skyrocketing nationwide because of the bird flu. Restaurants and supermarkets taking drastic action. Plus what some people are now using as egg substitutes. And America Strong. He's a pet's best friend. At 96 years old, he still delivers the goods.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News Tonight.
Good evening. Thanks so much for joining us on this Saturday. I'm Rachel Scott in for Whit Johnson. As we come on the air tonight, a major storm bringing winter weather. More than 90 million people bracing for snow, ice, heavy rain, and tornadoes. Dangerous flooding across parts of Virginia. The governor deploying the National Guard. Wise County declared a state of emergency. Flash flood warnings are now in effect for several counties in Kentucky. The National Weather Service issuing a warning for catastrophic flooding in some areas. Mudslides causing evacuations and the closure of a major interstate. And in Mississippi, they are bracing for another round of tornadoes after a twister battered Wang County earlier this week, leaving a trail of destruction. And high wind alerts are now in effect for more than 86 million people across 22 states from Sunday into Monday. We do have team coverage tonight, but we start with ABC's Faith Abubey leading us off from Jackson, Mississippi.
Tonight, the snow, rain, and tornado threat across the country. 90 million people now bracing for extreme weather.
We have flash flood warnings widespread.
Virginia's governor deploying the National Guard tonight as the state is also impacted. Some roads there becoming impassable. Wise County declaring a state of emergency due to ongoing flash flooding. Parts of Buchanan County there underwater. This building almost completely submerged. In the South, Tennessee and Kentucky are at high risk for excessive rainfall, a rare warning by the National Weather Service. Kentucky's governor saying there have been landslides and evacuations in his state. This house in Knox County, Kentucky, surrounded by rushing floodwaters. Tennessee also under flash flood warnings. Heavy rain causing the stream to surge over its banks, spilling onto roads. Tonight, there's also a threat of tornadoes for Mississippi, the region just recovering after a damaging EF1 tornado tore through Wayne County this week. The Daytona 500 is also starting their race an hour early tomorrow, anticipating impacts from severe weather. In the Northeast, authorities are preparing for what they expect to be significant snowfall. Snow causing treacherous road conditions in Fulton County, Pennsylvania, causing accidents on the road. Back in the West, parts of California digging out of the muddy mess, some of the areas hit by the devastating Eaton and Palisades fire.
Here we get fire, and also we get this biblical 40 days a night flood, and it's just inundated any kind of system.
And Rachel, there's an enhanced risk for tornadoes hanging over this area into the late night hours. It could be another sleepless night. We're expecting severe thunderstorms and damaging winds gusting up to 70 miles per hour. Rachel.
Faith, you said it, a sleepless night for those in the South. All right, Faith, thank you. Let's get right to ABC meteorologist Samara Theodore. Samara, time this one out for us.
Well, Rachel, we're anticipating this tornado watch in the south to stick around until at least 10 p.m. tonight Central Time. Robust storms already sweeping across northern Louisiana, parts of Arkansas, and even eastern Tennessee. We'll be seeing heavy rain from the same system. So right now we have significant rainfall that could lead to flash flooding, life-threatening flash flooding through parts of Kentucky. On the northern tier of the same storm, snow falling for parts of upstate New York. We're seeing the transition from wintry weather to rain in New York City. And timing it all out, it looks like this storm system will linger in places like New Hampshire and Vermont as we head through Sunday afternoon. By Sunday night, still tapering off for places like Boston. High wind alerts are also in place lining the East Coast. Rachel?
All right, Samara, tracking it all for us. Samara, thank you. We turn now to the breaking news tonight. Top U.S. officials are set to head to Saudi Arabia for talks to end the war in Ukraine. Sources telling ABC News that Secretary of State Marco Rubio and others are expected to meet with top Russian officials. It's unclear if Ukraine will join them. Here's ABC's Jay O'Brien.
Tonight, nearly 3 years after Russia's brutal invasion of Ukraine, sources telling ABC News top Trump administration officials are now traveling to Saudi Arabia to try to jumpstart peace talks between Moscow and Kyiv. The trip expected this week. Sources telling ABC News Secretary of State Marco Rubio, National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, and Middle East Special Envoy Steve Witkoff are expected to meet with Russian officials. Ukrainian negotiators not expected to participate at this point. President Volodymyr Zelensky saying today,
maybe there is something at the table, but not on our table. So I didn't see any invitations.
Just days ago, President Trump speaking by phone with Zelensky after a 90-minute phone call with Russian President Vladimir Putin.
We had a great call, and it lasted for a long time. I think President Putin wants peace, and President Zelensky wants peace, and I want peace.
Trump, who long promised to end the war, also asked if he views Ukraine as an equal in these talks.
Do you view Ukraine as an equal member of this peace process?
It's an interesting question. I think they have to make peace. Their people are being killed.
Rachel, the Trump administration reiterating that all options are on the negotiating table, including Ukraine's longtime goal of joining NATO. President Zelensky posting today that he's had good conversations with President Trump and other U.S. officials and that, quote, real peace is possible. Rachel.
So talks continuing with both sides tonight. All right, Jay O'Brien reporting at the White House. Jay, thank you. We turn now to the latest moves to shrink the size of the federal government. Tens of thousands of federal employees suddenly fired from their jobs. And word tonight that the IRS will lay off thousands of probationary workers in the middle of tax season. Here's ABC senior White House correspondent Selina Wang.
Tonight, 15,000 IRS workers facing potential termination in the middle of tax season. Sources telling ABC News that cuts could come as early as next week. The potential impact is unclear. Sources say the employees do not work directly on processing tax filings, but so much of the agency's work is connected to that central mission. It's the latest move in the ongoing and unprecedented purge of the federal workforce. President Trump empowering Elon Musk to dramatically slash the government's budget.
We want to downsize government, but make it better.
The Trump administration targeting thousands of workers from more than a dozen agencies. So far, more than 1,000 from Veterans Affairs, including First Sergeant Nelson Feliz, who says he feels betrayed after being fired just 2 years from retirement.
My job was to take care of troops, making sure they were paid, fed, and slept. Why this is happening to us? No.
And another 1,000 fired from the Centers for Disease Control, including as many as half of the agency's doctors and scientists who are sent across the country and world to respond to outbreaks.
This is a decapitation of the nation's most important health agencies that have led the world in science, technology, and innovation. This is going to cost more in the end than it saves.
The mass firings spearheaded by Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency. Hannah Hickman, another recently fired worker, has this message for Musk.
We're under attack by billionaires, but I'm not a billionaire. So, for me, the next steps are scary.
And tonight, Elon Musk is also sparking concerns within the intelligence community. Doge recently posted details on its website about the headcount and budget for an intelligence agency that designs and maintains U.S. intelligence satellites. And Rachel, sources tell us that this could be a major security breach.
Some concerns there. Selina, Wang tracking this developing story. It's great to have you with us in New York tonight. All right, Selina, thank you. And tune in to This Week tomorrow morning. House Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries speaks with Jonathan Karl about how his party is fighting back against President Trump's agenda. We turn now to the Middle East and Hamas releasing 3 more hostages as part of that ceasefire deal with Israel. American Sagi Dekel-Hin having an emotional reunion with his family after 497 days in captivity. More than 350 Palestinians also freed from Israel. Reports that some are in poor health. Meanwhile, Secretary of State Marco Rubio is expected to meet with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu tomorrow. Here's ABC's Marcus Moore in Tel Aviv tonight.
Tonight, relief and happiness in Israel as their families and an entire nation watched 3 hostages emerge from captivity in Gaza. Among them, American Sagi Dekel-Hin. The 36-year-old, now father of 3, was taken from Kir Az on October 7th. These moving images show him reuniting with his wife today, who gave birth to their 3rd daughter while Hamas held him hostage. There were many heartfelt reunions broadcast for the world to see. Families gathered around a screen at Hostage Square in Tel Aviv. Those emotions quickly shifting to concern for the remaining 70 hostages, including Vicky Cohen's 20-year-old son, Nimrod.
I was really glad for them, but I was also very worried for my son, Nimrod. This is our mission, to bring Nimrod back home.
Families are imploring Prime Minister Netanyahu to move into phase 2 of the ceasefire, which would bring all of the hostages home. While in Gaza and the West Bank, more reunions. Over 300 Palestinian prisoners were released in return for those 3 hostages.
And Rachel, Secretary of State Marco Rubio has arrived in Tel Aviv tonight. He's expected to meet with Prime Minister Netanyahu tomorrow morning. And this visit comes as pressure mounts on Israel and Hamas to move to phase 2 in the ceasefire agreement. Rachel.
Marcus, thank you. Now to the latest on Pope Francis. The 88-year-old remains hospitalized tonight with bronchitis, but he is said to be showing signs of improvement. ABC's chief international correspondent James Longman is in Rome. And James, what's the latest from the Vatican?
Rachel, the Pope is spending a second night in the hospital where he's being treated for bronchitis, but he is getting better. His doctors say that his fever is gone and his test results are improving. He spent the day resting, reading and in prayer, but his doctors have prescribed absolute rest, which means he will not lead the Angelus prayer from here in Vatican City tomorrow, but he will send a message to the faithful. He's said to be very pleased with all the messages of support that he has received, and he's thanked those who continue to pray for his recovery. Rachel?
And so many are wishing him well tonight. James, thank you. We turn now to that measles outbreak in rural West Texas. The case is doubling in size to 48, mostly among children and teens. Many of them are either unvaccinated or their status is unknown. It's the state's worst outbreak in nearly 30 years. Here's ABC's Morgan Norwood.
Tonight, measles, a disease once declared eliminated in the U.S., spreading rapidly through rural West Texas. 48 cases reported so far, mostly in children and teens, 13 people hospitalized, and all of those infected either unvaccinated or their status unknown. This mom taking no chances when her son came down with mysterious rashes.
We just wanted to make sure that if it is the measles, that we get it treated properly.
Measles is a highly contagious virus that can lead to serious health complications if left untreated. Health experts say the vaccine is safe and effective, and the 2-shot series is required for most kindergartners entering U.S. public schools. But this outbreak spreading from its epicenter in Gaines County, where health officials say some of the cases appear to be linked to private religious schools. Texas does allow vaccine exemptions, including for religious beliefs, with Gaines County having one of the highest opt-out rates in the state. And with vaccine hesitancy on the rise, health officials warn that we could see more of these measles outbreaks. Rachel?
Morgan, thank you. Now to a horrific ordeal in Wyoming. Drivers scrambling for safety after a fiery explosion inside a major interstate tunnel. At least 2 people were killed and several more were injured after the massive car pileup. Drivers and passengers forced to flee the flames and black smoke. What we are learning tonight. Here's ABC's Jacqueline Lee.
Another explosion.
Tonight, the NTSB is investigating a deadly pileup on a major highway in Wyoming. Stunning images showing thick black smoke billowing out of Green River Tunnel on I-80 after a multi-vehicle crash shut down the highway in both directions.
The uniqueness of this one is the fact that it was in the tunnel and how the fire started in the tunnel, which prevented
our response into the tunnel.
The accident occurring on Friday morning around 11:30. Multiple fires on site, making it so hot that tires started exploding. First responders racing to the scene, announcing 2 people killed in the crash with multiple people injured.
I just feel so bad for the people burning alive in there, man. I couldn't even try to help them.
Geologists and engineers are inspecting the tunnel's infrastructure. The cause of the crash is under investigation. Rachel.
Jacqueline, thank you. Next tonight, egg prices hitting a record high as the U.S. struggles with an outbreak of the bird flu. Some grocery stores even having problems keeping eggs on their shelves. All this as the CDC is reporting another human case of the virus. Here's ABC's Alexis Christoforous.
Tonight, as the CDC confirms another human case of the bird flu, the ongoing outbreak wreaking havoc on the nation's egg supply, sending prices to record levels across the U.S. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the price of eggs are up 53% in the past year to $4.95 a dozen. Shortages coast to coast, from long lines for fresh eggs in California to empty shelves in New York.
I go to the store and it's like $10 a carton. I'm like, what?
Lawmakers in Nevada suspending a cage-free law to meet demand. Stores including Costco, Trader Joe's, Walmart, Whole Foods, and Kroger now limiting how many cartons of eggs customers can buy. All of this coming at a time when breakfast is booming at restaurants. While some chains use substitutes, others use real eggs in their breakfast items, including McDonald's, Taco Bell, Wendy's, Panera, and Waffle House, which recently added a 50-cent surcharge per egg. Others are scrambling to come up with egg alternatives, like tapioca starch for some recipes, or increasing portion sizes for non-egg items like meat and potatoes. Some restaurants and consumers flocking to plant-based substitutes like Just Egg, where January sales jumped 5 times from a year ago. The company telling ABC News it's now ramping up production of its vegan-based eggs to meet growing demand. Officials say don't expect relief down the egg aisle anytime soon. With Easter just weeks away, demand is expected to rise, and the Department of Agriculture predicts prices will go up another 20% this year. Rachel?
So prices and demand soaring. All right, Alexis, thank you. And there's still so much more ahead on World News Tonight this Saturday. Lawyers for Jay-Z and P. Diddy speak out after an accuser drops her lawsuit against the hip-hop stars. And the suspect in the murder of a top insurance executive has a message for his supporters. Next tonight, the woman who claims she was raped by Jay-Z and Sean Diddy Combs when she was 13 has now dropped her lawsuit against the hip-hop artist. Jay-Z denied the claim. His lawyers said there were glaring inconsistencies in the woman's story. Lawyers for Combs say the lawsuit was built on falsehoods. He remains in a New York jail awaiting trial on racketeering and sex trafficking charges. When we come back, the suspect accused of murdering a top insurance executive is now speaking out. The man accused of murdering a top insurance executive has issued his first statement from behind bars. Luigi Mangione says he's grateful for the support he has received. Mangione is charged in the shooting death of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson in New York last November. And when we come back, America's strong. At 96, he's still making special deliveries. Finally tonight, meet the man still spreading kindness at 96.
Bill Talon has a special way he starts each day, rolling out his bike, filling his basket with goodies, and then heading out on his route.
Okay.
That's Bill at 96 years old on wheels, stopping to pass out treats to all the pets in his community in Mesa, Arizona. 3 cats and 30 dogs.
Nothing is more important to him than seeing Bill.
Every day, rain or shine, for the last 23 years.
The dogs all know him, love him, just love him.
I have several dogs and cats at home, and so I started giving them treats, and I've been doing so ever since.
He knows most of the pets by name.
Your next customer is waiting for you.
And he's always right on time.
He does this in all kinds of weather. It can be chilly, it can be rainy, and Bill is out delivering the treats to the pups.
If they're not there, he leaves a little something anyway.
He's an inspiration to us because he's 96 and he's active. He's on the bike.
And he has no plans of slowing down. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Rachel Scott. Good night.
Thank you for making World News Tonight with David Muir, America's most watched newscast.